Hello and welcome to our YouTube channel. So in this video we'll learn how to measure for your buba crop top, and we're going to measure from the shoulder to get the buba length from the highest point of your shoulder passing through the bust point all the way to the waist or the navel or wherever your client wants it to get to. Some might want it a bit higher, some a bit lower, so you confirm that and you note it down. Okay, then the next thing you want to measure is the shoulder. So from the part of your neck, the part where when you bend your head, a bone comes off, you put the tape there to your shoulder. Now, because this is Buba's shoulder falls off the shoulder about 1 inch. So you can add 1 inch to the actual shoulder. Some people even want it to fall more than 1 inch. So you confirm from the clients, but averagely 1 inch away from the shoulder is fine. So you add that to the shoulder measurement. After then, still from that point, we are measuring from the back all the way passing through the shoulder all the way to the wrist. Okay, you might see it later in the video as shoulder to wrist, but it's actually from back to wrist. Okay, so you note and you take that measurement. After then, you want to take the bust measurement. We didn't actually use it, but it's good to just know what the person's bust is to give you an idea, to be sure that the cloth will fit them. So we measured the bust. You also want to measure the circumference of the wrist. So depending on how big you want the wrist to be, some people eyeball it, but I mean measure it to see how full it looks, and then you take note of it. Then you also want to check the armhole size. So some people also have figures for this, so you might not need to measure. In the one that we did, we used 9 inches. Okay, so you can decide depending on how big the person is, you can increase it. Okay, so let's go to the cutting table. First thing you want to do is to have your measurements. So you have your buba length, you have your shoulder, you have your shoulder to wrist, and you have your bust measurement. Okay, so what you need your chalk, you need your scissors, you need your ruler, and of course you need your fabric and your measuring tape. The folding of buba is quite different. Your normal buba does not have joining on the shoulder, so it means that we are going to cut both front and back together. Okay, so now because of the way my fabric is, I already have some cuts here, so maybe I'll use the other side. So I need to fold. This is my first fold. Remember the length. I'm going to, this first fold will be for my length, and the length of my buba is 17 inches. However, I'm still going to fold it in. So depending on the kind of fold you want to do, whether it's a big one or the small one, for me, I'll do the small one. So I'm just folding like this. So I'm going to add an extra of 1 inch. So that means I have to measure 18. Okay. So if I have 18, I have 18 here. So after that, you're going to measure, you come here and measure your shoulder. The shoulder measurement was 10, but I'm going to add seam allowance as well, sewing allowance. So my sewing allowance is just half inch, so that's 10.5. So I'm going to fold it over the other one. So I'll come in to measure again. So I said I need 10 and a half here. So I have more than that. So I'll take it back in. Ensure that this fold inside gets to the end, okay? So I'm just going to mark where my 10 and a half is. I'm also touching here. I'm seeing that this is not getting there. It is going to affect if it doesn't get in. So I have to use my hands to arrange them inside, okay? So I'll take my chalk and mark my 10.5. Remember that my 10.5 includes the sewing allowance, and this 10.5 is just the shoulder. I would also mark the length again just to be sure. Remember the length is 17, we added 1 inch, that's 18. The 1 inch extra is the M allowance. We don't have any joining on the shoulder, so we're not adding any seam allowance on the shoulder. So I'm going to connect. Now, the armholes, so yes, you're supposed to have an opening for your armhole. You can decide to use, you can just mark it anyway. You can decide to use, let's use 9 for R. For our boss is 36, okay? So we're using 9 for R. And for our neck now, the depth of the neck would be 3 inches. Okay, the depth will be 3 inches. And then the wideness. So I want it to be a little bit wider than 3 inches. So I'm going to use 4 inches. So I notch this so that I know where the sleeve is stopping. Okay, I'll also notch the top parts so I know that is where the shoulder is. So let's proceed to cut the neck area. So I'm going to come up a bit just because I don't want the neck to be too wide. If it's too high, then I can take it off. So it's like me doing that a quarter, right? Leaving a quarter for my sewing allowance so that my actual neck depth and wideness will still be what I measured. So now that we have this, you can open up. Okay, can you see this? This is what we have for both front and back. All right, for both front, we have front and back together. This is the right side. So we just join. Buba is actually very easy. So you just join your sleeve and in a few minutes you're done. Okay, but now we need to cut facing because we need to turn our neckline. We can't leave it raw. Some people would like to pipe it or use bias, but I would recommend that you use a facing. Okay, get your fabric, cut the facing. Let me just use the parts that is already in pieces. Now your facing also needs to be on fold here. Okay, so that it will capture the shoulder. So I'll just place it on fold and place this over it. And the facing doesn't have to be very wide. And just do 2 inches for your facing. So now that I have this here, what I'll do is to mark out the neck. Okay, I will mark out the neck and I can take this out. Then remember I said I want just 2 inches. In fact, I will have folded this a bit more so that it doesn't waste the fabric. Let's take it up a bit more. Okay, so you can bring it back and mark again while ensuring that you have up to 2 inches here. So you can mark your 2 inches. So you have the facing. This facing now is for front and back. But before I take it out, let me notch so that I am very sure and I don't have to worry about where the joinings would be. So the notches actually help you and makes your sewing faster. So if I open this way, this already has a notch, it already has a notch. So I'm just going to place right side facing right side. However, just so that my facing doesn't fall out from time to time. Remember, I don't have a shoulder joining where I can use to hold the facing. I'm going to put paper stay. So I'm going to cut paper stay of this shape using the facing to cut it and press on it so that it gives it more stability and it doesn't fly in and out when the person wearing is wearing it. Okay, so when you're done, you're just going to put it this way, pin down and do a stitch round. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut the sleeve. Now our sleeve is wide. It's not the regular buba. It's same shape from the shoulder, but it flares out at the hem. So let's go ahead and cut the sleeve. So for the sleeve, remember that we took our shoulder measurement, which is 10, and our back to wrist. Okay, that was what you saw on the sheet as shoulder to wrist. But our back to wrist is coming from the middle of the back, okay, on your neck, all the way to the sleeve, all the way to the wrist. While your shoulder measurement was taken from the middle of the back, same points, right? But it ends on the shoulder. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the back to wrist from shoulder. So in our case, back to wrist is 35, is 33, sorry, and shoulder is 10. So 33 minus 10, we're left with 23. Okay. So that means the length of my sleeve is going to be 23. Remember that the opening we left for the sleeve is 9 inches. So take note of those figures. Those are the figures that we will need. So this folding will also include the sewing allowance. So the wideness we want for the hem of the sleeve is about, the round wideness is about 24. So if it's folded like this, that means we need 12. Then let's add half inch as allowance. That is 12 and a half. So we need 12 and a half. So we can fold this. Okay, so we have 12 and a half. Okay, and we said the length is 23. but this time we will need allowance for joining the upper parts and allowance for folding this part. So for the sleeve, I would not want to do the folding of pressing, you know, of stitching. So you can use hemming gum to fold. So because this is actually the selvage, I would not need to trim this. I will just fold in 1 inch and use hemming gum to hold it. So if my sleeve length is meant to be 23 and I want to fold by 1 inch, that means I need to add 1 inch. So 23 plus 1 is 24, and I need ½ inch to join the shoulder to the body. That is 24 and a half. So I will mark 24 and a half. That is what I need this sleeve length to be. And then remember that the opening was 9. Of course, you had ½ inch for the seam allowance, so that would be 9.5. Okay, so I mark that. Now I'm going to use a ruler to connect slantly because that's how our sleeve is. It is not a straight buba sleeve, it flares out at the end. So slantly here, and then we can cut. So we will use this to also cut the second one. Remember to notch here so it's easy when sewing. So we have the 2 sleeve. Okay, we have the 2 sleeve, we have the body and the facing. Okay, so in the next video we'll be seeing how to join this together. See you in the next video.